Oh, take 2 seconds. It's fine.
All right, you are live.
Well, good evening, everyone. I hope everyone's doing well. It is the hour of 7 o'clock has arrived on this 1st of February, 2022. And so because of that, I will now call to order the City of Racine Common Council. The first item before us after the call to order is the Pledge of Allegiance. If people could rise as they are able and join me in facing to the east and reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone, for joining me in that. President Tate, do we have any absences for this evening?
Alder Mink was joined, so I have no other requested or notified absences.
Excellent. Thank you very much. We will then move on to the next item, which is the approval of the minutes for the 18th of January, 2022. President Tate, I would entertain such a motion.
Move to approve the Journal of Council proceedings from January 8th, 2022. 18th, excuse me, 2022.
Second.
A motion has been made by President Tate and seconded by Alder Santiago. Any discussion on said minutes? Seeing none, if everyone could please unmute themselves briefly. All those in favor of approving the minutes of the 18th of January, 2022, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. We'll now move on to 2 proclamations that we have for this month, both having to do with Black History Month, the first of which is around Black History Month. It reads, a proclamation for the city of Racine, Wisconsin, whereas famous historian Carter Woodson, son of a former enslaved people, established Negro History Week in 1926, and 50 years later, as part of the nation's bicentennial, February was established as Black History Month. And whereas the theme of Black History Month 2022 is Black Health and Wellness, and acknowledges the legacy not only of Black scholars and medical practitioners in Western medicine, but also birth workers, doulas, midwives, naturopaths, naturalists, herbalists, and others throughout the African diaspora. Whereas the theme of Black health and wellness also serves to draw attention to the ways the American healthcare system has historically underserved the African-American community by creating disparity in access to quality healthcare. Whereas despite recent progress through the Obama administration's Affordable Care Act that improved access to healthcare for all Americans, disparities by race and ethnicity continue to exist in healthcare coverage and lead to higher rates of infant mortality, chronic health conditions, hypertension, mental health care, heart disease, and overall mortality rates. And whereas to improve access to healthcare for local residents, the city of Racine is working in collaboration with multiple partners in hopes of establishing a federally qualified health center with the goal of reducing health disparities that exist in our community. Now, therefore, I, Corey Mason, Mayor of the City of Racine, do hereby proclaim February 2022 Black History Month and call on all Racine residents to work together to ensure justice and equity for all, with a special focus on access to affordable healthcare, signed and affixed on this 2nd day of February. The next one is around Transit Equity Day. And I want to thank our Willie McDonald and Trevor Young with the Transit Department for bringing this to my attention. Transit Equity Day is a national day of action first established on February 4th, 2017, to coincide with the birthday of civil rights activist Rosa Parks, who refused to give up her seat on the bus to a white man in the Jim Crow South, her action being the catalyst for the Montgomery bus boycott. Whereas recognizing that public transit is a civil right, the Montgomery bus boycott demanded an end to segregation in the Montgomery, Alabama transit system and brought the civil rights movement into the national spotlight. Whereas the network of transit rider unions, community organizations, environmental groups, and labor unions launched the Transit Equity Day in order to highlight the link between civil rights, environmental justice, and transportation. Whereas Transit Equity Day seeks to continue Rosa Parks' brave and determined legacy by advocating for safe and reliable public transportation for all people by promoting affordable, accessible, and sustainable transportation for all community members. Whereas on the 109th anniversary of Rosa Parks' birth, the city of Racine affirms that all people have a right to high quality public transportation that runs on clean and renewable energy. Now, therefore, I, Corey Mason, Mayor of the city of Racine, do proclaim will be February 4th, Transit Equity Day, signed and affixed below. So thank you both for indulging our ability to bring those proclamations to the council and to the community's attention. We'll now move on to the public comments section of our meeting. Amber or Tara, how many individuals do we have for public comments this evening? And if you could prepare the council and the public for our procedure around that, please.
Sure, there will be one speaker this evening. I'll go ahead and read the directions. The public comment segment is an opportunity for citizens to speak directly to the Common Council. Speakers will limit their remarks to 3 minutes. There shall be no dialogue or interaction between the speaker and elected officials or staff. Time is not intended to be a debate or discussion. The Common Council shall not hear personal complaints or attacks against any city employee or elected official, or any matter related to an individual claim, citation, appeal, or lawsuit. Profane, disruptive, threatening, or conduct that otherwise impedes the safe, orderly, and effective conduct of the Common Council meeting is equally unacceptable during the public comment period as it is during all other portions of city meetings. When a group of people representing one viewpoint wishes to address the council, one person should be appointed the designated speaker for the group. Candidates for public office may not use this opportunity to campaign for office. Speakers during the public comment period shall follow all rules of the Common Council and rulings of the chair, including a decision to terminate the remarks if the speaker does not adhere to these rules. Public comment shall be limited to ideas or concerns regarding the city of Racine. There will be one speaker this evening, Mercedes Bitson-Letta. Mercedes, give me 1 second to unmute you, please. Okay. All right, Mercedes, are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and start your timer now.
Hello, everybody. I missed you the last time, I too, or something like that. Don't know. I haven't got the new schedule on my book, so I don't know where it's at. And I just barely made it back for today, even though I had hoped to do something. Anyway, so I don't have a prepared statement except for the fact that everything downtown, it is so much quieter on the streets, which is not good for the city at large and many other places. Today was way warmer than yesterday. Tomorrow it's going to go back to winter. So we can all look forward to that. But back to the streets and downtown. Sorry to see some businesses going out. I see some that are doing better than others, but for the most part, it is too quiet downtown, way too quiet on the streets. And that's not going to be good. I'm sure the rest of the city is also suffering, and that's not good. We got to get the local areas, neighborhoods, which means people out and about and walking, which of course, when it gets warmer, hopefully they will be able to get out and about and get some fresh air with their whole face, not just the eyes and the ears. So I'm going to actually go off because I know that the traffic has to be improved. I don't know what we can do to get people calmer because they are not driving very well. So the few people I do see in my car or when I'm crossing the street, they're driving. They have no patience with a pedestrian. It seems to be even worse, but they also have no patience for people driving on the street if they're thinking you're in their way. So whatever we can do to slow down, to remember that this is a community of people who live in Racine. Thank you, and I'll see you next time.
Okay, and Clerk Coolidge, that concludes our public comments for this evening.
Yes, thank you, Barry. That concludes the public comments.
Thank you so much. We'll now move on to committee reports. The first report is the Finance and Personnel Committee. Alder Taft, did you have any items for separate consideration?
As it turns out, I have received no such requests.
Then without objection, I will move the items on the Finance and Personnel Committee report onto the consent agenda. Oh, Alder West.
Thanks, Mayor. I was just wondering, do we need to do a roll call for attendance purposes?
We do not. We'd asked President Tate at the head of the meeting if there were any excused absences, so that suffices for that purpose. But thank you for your point of inquiry.
Thank you.
Did anybody have any items for consideration on finance and personnel? Seeing none, we will place those on the consent agenda and now move on to Public Works and Services. Alder Jones, do you have any items for separate consideration?
Thank you, Mayor. I received no such request.
Seeing no requests for separate consideration, we will place these items on the consent agenda and then move on to, sorry, I'm just scrolling. Give me just a minute. We're moving hastily here. Moving on now to Public Safety and Licensing Committee. Alder Coe, is this an item for separate consideration? Alder Coe, you're muted.
Yes, I have two items for separate consideration. Item number 0901-21 and item 0001-22.
Okay, why don't you read the first item and we'll start there.
All right. Item 0901-21, communication submitting an application for a Class B retail fermented malt beverage and intoxicating liquor license for Sleepy Lounge LLC, doing business as Sleepy Lounge, located at 1641 Douglas Avenue, Monica Dixon, agent. Recommendation of the committee on 11/29/2021 was to defer. A recommendation on 1/24/2022, it was recommended for approval. Alder Caprillion is going to be speaking to this item right now.
Okay.
If that's okay with you.
Yeah, if Alder Caprillion could virtually raise her hand to be recognized, I'm happy to call on her. Or physically, either one's fine. Alder Caprillion, go right ahead.
Point of order.
Thank you.
Alder, take the second.
Should a motion be made before we engage in that?
You are correct. Alder Coe, are you making a motion on this item?
Well, the motion from the committee was motion to approve.
Right, it is your item, however. So are you making a motion to approve or are you making a motion to reject the item?
Well, I guess at this time I'm making a motion to reject the item.
Oh. Okay, is there a second to reject item 0901-21?
Second.
Second from Alder Caprillion. President Tate, thank you for that point of order. Alder Caprillion, the floor is yours.
Thank you kindly for that. This item was before us, not only at this past public safety and licensing meeting, but a little bit prior, right before the holidays. It was asked to be deferred. I think ultimately why it got deferred was more so an update on this applicant's package. There was some question about hours and just a little gained information to allow this applicant some time to update her paperwork to match how she felt her business she would like to present it. So the problem that I have, I was one of those who voted against this, is this location here. We had an applicant come forward, not the one that you see before us right now, for approval. And it was the owners of Tropical Paradise. I believe, yep, that was the name of it. And unfortunately, Tropical Paradise does not have the best history with the city of Racine on some of the latest practices of business prior to them closing their doors. It has been some years since the doors have been closed, I believe 2019 possibly. But before that, there was ongoing issues. It just so happened that we had Investigator Mitchell to speak, and we also had Lieutenant Webb to speak on this item and to talk about the problems they had at that time that were ongoing, from fights and civil troubles, from weapons violations. When Investigator Mitchell ran this report, it was for March 24th of 2018 to December of 2019. So a short period of time, and there was continuous calls. It just so happened that Investigator Mitchell was working third shift on the time, and she could really speak from a personal level, and also the Lieutenant Webb. And so at that time, so that application actually did not pass because it did come before this body and we had voted it down, if you recall. So the concern I have with this one, we have Ms. Dixon coming forward and with a proposal at the site. Seems like I have a wonderful lady. We have she's worked for the city before, and you know, I love applications like this where they come forward, they want to do some business. The problem that I had after the Good Neighbors report, there was a incident where the health department, just formal proceedings or practices that take place after this process or when all this starts up, when somebody wants to open up an establishment. And the person answering the health department's questions was the former owner of Tropical Paradise. Him and Miss Dixon were at the location when the health department was there. And so I had asked if she had known this gentleman, and she hadn't, but it could be the owner of the establishment had called him to be there. My concern is that this was a roundabout way to get that Tropical Paradise running this establishment. Unfortunately, I would hate to see if Ms. Dixon did not know this past. I would hate that to be on her reputation and something go on. It sounds like she does want to make this honest effort to really move forward. But there is this connection with Tropical Paradise I do not feel comfortable with. And again, as I've said to this body before, this is a privilege to hold a liquor license. It's an absolute privilege. You have those who had business before and that have somehow had some bad practices take place. We've given them a chance. It is not up to this body. It's to make right by their business practices. It is up to them. They had a fair chance to do so. And I think it's time to open the door. We have limited liquor license, and there are other people who are interested, and to give that to an entity that has already shown not good partnership with the city. I just don't believe in going that route. So I voted against that for that reason. And that is it. If you were to have some questions, I do have a little bit more background for that. If it comes to be, I'm happy to answer it. Thank you.
Alder Caprellian, thank you very much. Alder Horton, you have the floor.
All right, thank you, Your Honor. I just want to speak in support of this establishment opening. I think that we had an opportunity twice. We had an opportunity for this to be deferred, and then we had an opportunity for it to be passed 3-2. And so it did come back to committee. We did talk about this. Some of the things that were talked about was a brand new owner that owned this place, someone that has a reputation in Racine of having businesses and 2 local bars. So the committee, they decided to run a background report on this bar for 2 local bars who had not even over 10 calls for services to the 2 bars that he had open. And so we talked about it, we discussed it. Mrs. Dixon, you know, I think this thing is all about relationships of who you know and who you're acquainted with. And I think that shouldn't be our focus here, because Mr. Gills, who owned the bar, had 2 bars, Big Daddy 1, Big Daddy 2, with no problems. So Mrs. Monica Dixon, who is the agent, has not even had an opportunity to see whether she can pass or fail or be successful. So I think we had the discussion. We had police reports on the 2 bars. And I just think that, you know, we decided that night to move forward. And so I'm really shocked and surprised that this has come back up tonight for it to be not supported. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder Horton. President Tate, second.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to speak against the motion, partially because, you know, in echoing Alder Horton's comments that this was deferred, this was evaluated, this was ultimately passed by a slim majority, but a majority nonetheless out of committee. Additionally, the information that we just received from Alder Caprellian, I'm concerned that it sounds like we're dangerously close to accusing the applicant of fraud. Because if we're suggesting that, you know, this person applied with the clear expectations and clear understanding of what they were planning to do, and because we saw that there was some, you know, tie to a person that we previously rejected, the idea of that we're rejecting based upon that suggests that in turn we see that they're doing some sort of straw man application. And I think it's dangerous for us to be making that accusation or suggesting that particular kind of accusation. And I think it's unfair to the applicant to not take them at their word, particularly after they appeared before the committee multiple times and made their case and ultimately been approved to their case, to then come back to the Common Council and make this alternative case against that to some degree impugning the integrity of the applicant by suggesting that they are tied to an entity or a person that we deem or have deemed as unsatisfactory as a license holder. So for those two reasons, Alder Horton's comments, as well as the suggestion that I don't want to put the city in a position that we're advocating or supporting the perspective or suggestion that an applicant is before us is committing some sort of fraud without sufficient evidence to actually do that and pursue it in a legal course. Thank you.
Alder Peterson.
Yes, I also voted in favor of this at the committee level, and I am speaking in favor of her getting her license, thus against the motion. I echo everything Horton stated. I look at this application as an application by Monica Dixon and nobody else. She seems to have a good history and a good record in life in general, and I see no reason, because of some possibility of a connection, as to why we would turn this down. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder Peterson. Alder Perez.
Thank you, Your Honor. Our committee also voted in favor of this moving forward. She even volunteered to shorten her working operation hours to be able to control what could have possibly been, late closing and some issues. And she was willing to cooperate completely with all the suggestions that were made. And yes, it was the debate was contentious, but I agree with everything that was said in favor from Alder Horton and Alder Peterson. I think this is important that we move forward with a business. It continues to bring minority involvement into the community, and we need to support this. If something comes up, then we have the option always of shutting it down if we need to. But we have to stop not giving people opportunities to redeem locations and themselves through business models. And I think it's important that we move forward with this and not reject the idea. Thank you.
Alder McCarthy.
I have a question regarding the actual motion in case this vote does end up being successful. Maybe best go to Alderman Coe or to the city attorney. The motion was to reject. And I want to clarify that versus a deny in this particular case and what the intent of the maker of the motion was, because a motion of denial has implications to it that rejecting the recommendation does not have. So I'm looking to understand that clarification or get that clarification from the maker of the motion at a minimum, please.
Yeah, I'll ask the city attorney to clarify. And if I erred in using the wrong parliamentary language that's necessary under the statutory constructs here, I'm happy to ask Alder Coe to clarify that. But to the city attorney, could you clarify the nomenclature of rejection versus denial in this case?
I'm not sure practically it's going to make a big difference, because if we're rejecting the action of the committee, it ends up being a denial of unless it wants to get sent back to committee. If a license is denied, there are due process implications for an applicant. So, if the intent is to deny the license, council should understand that.
So just to clarify, just to follow up on Alder McCarthy's inquiry, though, are there any due process rights or procedures that would be not included if we rejected the motion versus denied the committee recommendation or denied the license?
can just give me a moment to look at the ordinance, Your Honor.
Yeah.
The,
Well, let me ask it another way. Would there be would it clarify further, I think maybe to Alder McCarthy's point, if we asked Alder Coe to consider changing his motion from a rejection to a denial?
I think a denial would be clearer.
Okay. Alder Coe, are you amenable to changing your motion from a motion to reject to a motion to deny?
Yes.
And Alder Caprillion, as the seconder of that motion, do you concur? She concurs. Okay. Then what we have before us is a motion to deny the license that was recommended by the committee. Alder McCarthy, did that satisfy your inquiry? Thank you. Any further discussion on this item? I don't see any further discussion. So just to clarify, and if the clerk or the city attorney need to expand or clarify my assessment of this, please do before we go to roll call. So the motion is to deny. So if you vote yes, the applicant will not get a liquor license. If you vote no, the motion to deny will have been defeated and a subsequent motion could then be entertained along the lines of the committee recommendation. Okay, so I see no further members of council wishing to speak on this matter. So when the clerk calls your name on the motion to deny the license, please vote as you wish.
Alder Lemke,
No.
Alder Coe,
Aye.
Alder Jones,
No.
Alder Tate,
No.
Alder Santiago,
No.
Alder Caprillion,
Aye.
Alder Peterson,
No.
Alder Horton,
No.
Alder West,
No.
Alder McCarthy,
No.
Alder Pete,
Yes.
Alder Rouse,
No.
Alder Perez,
No.
Alder Taft,
No.
Alder Meekma.
No.
That's 12 noes, 3 yes.
So the motion fails. Alder Horton, at this time, I would entertain a motion regarding item 0901 and the committee's recommendation.
I'd like to make a motion to approve item 0901-21 for the Sleepy Lounge LLC.
Second.
Second.
A motion made by Alder Horton and a second made by Alder Horton regarding item 0901-21. Any further discussion on this item?
Just a clarification on the seconder, please.
The seconder was Alder Peterson.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Seeing no further discussion, again, this is a motion to approve the committee recommendation, which will grant the license. So a yes vote here does grant to the applicant a license. When the clerk calls your name, please vote as you wish.
Alder Lemke,
Aye.
Alder Coe,
Aye.
Alder Jones,
Aye.
Alder Tate,
Aye.
Alder Santiago,
Aye.
Alder Caprillion,
No.
Alder Peterson,
Yes.
Alder Horton,
Aye.
Alder West,
Aye.
Alder McCarthy,
Aye.
Alder Pete,
No.
Alder Rouse,
Aye.
Alder Perez,
Aye.
Alder Taft,
Aye.
Alder Meekma.
Aye.
That's 13 ayes, 2 noes.
That motion carries. Back to the public safety and licensing report, Alder Coe, you said you had another item for separate consideration?
Yes, item 0001-22, communications submitting an application for a reserve Class B retail fermented malt beverage and intoxicating liquor license for 20 Grand Lux LLC doing business as 20 Grand Lux LLC located at 1307 Douglas Avenue, Courtney Marshall, agent, 4th District. I'm recommending to deny this application. I make a motion.
You're making a
Second
motion.
that motion.
The motion to deny this item made by the chair, Alder Coe, seconded by Alder Caprillion. Alder Coe, would you like to speak to your motion?
Yes, I would. So, item 0001-22, liquor license for 20 Grand Lux located at 1307 Douglas Avenue was recommended for approval by a 3-2 vote. I was a no vote on this license. In the application, there is a question: have you ever been convicted of any offenses other than traffic? Mr. Marshall failed to disclose some relevant information, and this was a Good Neighbors report, an update from it. Upon further review, city staff learned that Mr. Marshall failed to disclose some pertinent information both at the Good Neighbors meeting and on his application in January of 2019. Mr. Marshall received approval from the city of Kenosha for a Class B license to operate a bar called the White Horse in March of 2019. Before the issuance of such a license, officers responded to a large party at the premises, resulting in a crowd of several hundred people causing a disturbance. Most, if not all, of Kenosha's on-duty officers responded that night to deal with the unruly crowd. As the person responsible for the premises, Mr. Marshall was cited for and ultimately convicted of failing to obtain a public entertainment license for the event. During the Good Neighbors meeting, when asked about any relevant experience in the alcohol industry, Mr. Marshall neglected to disclose his affiliations with the White Horse. On his license application, Mr. Marshall also failed to disclose his conviction. Mr. Marshall stated that he forgot about it. This occurred in March of 2019, yet he listed convictions dating back to 2001. I believe Mr. Marshall should be denied based on failing to disclose convictions on his application. Kenosha, Pleasant Prairie, State Patrol, and Racine Police Departments all responded to this call in March of 2019. It is a privilege to have a liquor license, and I believe Mr. Marshall does not deserve this privilege based on this information. Because Mr. Marshall did not divulge this information, that is enough to deny this license. And I do believe we have somebody from the police department that is going to speak on this item also.
Okay,
Thank
well,
you.
so Alder Coe, would you like someone, the chief of police?
Yes, I would. Yes, I would like that if somebody from the police, I'm not sure who it is, but.
Chief Robinson, I know you're here. Do you or anyone from your team from the police department have any information to add to?
Mayor, Lieutenant Webb is in the holding room, I think, waiting to get on. I just got a text message from him.
Great. I will
He's
ask.
familiar.
Excellent. Thank you, Chief Robinson. We'll ask the clerk if we can elevate Lieutenant Webb into the meeting.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
We can. Please proceed, sir.
Okay. All right. Reference this item, the initial reference from the police department was that the gentleman did not provide accurate information, which means he would have been disqualified under guidelines number 5 for providing false information on the application. In reference to the incident that happened in Kenosha, the police department did not investigate that incident itself, but at the time we did send officers down there. As I initially stated during the Public Safety and Licensing Committee meeting, the police department's concern with this applicant would be like it is with all applicants. The event in Kenosha happened, it occurred, how it occurred or why it occurred. Our main concern would be what are we putting in place to make sure that incident doesn't reoccur, with the city of Racine having to request Caledonia, Mount Pleasant, Sturtevant, and Kenosha to come here for one of those events. If memory recalls me correctly, the gentleman at the time did provide mitigating standards that he was going to be putting in place. In terms of how that application is processed, if I'm wrong, someone correct me, but there's already a process set up for individuals that provide false information on application. And again, the police department's only concern with this is that this gentleman is going to be a good neighbor, and we're not going to have a repeat of that event or another situation to where we're dealing with a resource drain. That's all I have.
Lieutenant Webb, thank you very much. If you could just stand by in case there's follow-up questions. Before we open it up to council and Lieutenant Webb's comments, I guess I would ask the city attorney if he could shed any light on sort of what occurs if the committee had one set of facts that they were considering when they reviewed this item and the council now appears to have a different set of facts. Any, I guess, comments or advice on what the ordinance would instruct us to do? I know this is something we obviously want to be careful about. So, Mr. Letney, any thoughts?
Sure. Well, the committee makes the recommendation to council, but council can consider any matters before it. So the council can send it back to committee if it wants, or can take action based upon the information that it has.
And based on the ordinance, Attorney Letney, is incomplete or inaccurate information on an application automatically disqualifying event to get a license?
It's not an automatically disqualifying event, but it can be determined to be disqualifying.
Thank you. Thank you. And for the folks on PSNL who know all this regularly, my apologies. We're just trying to make sure we understand what's before us. Alder Perez.
Thank you, Your Honor. Part of the description that Lieutenant Webb gave was correct, but the incident that occurred that he was referring to was not involving alcohol at all. It seemed to be a juvenile party, not alcohol related, and that's why I think he mentioned the facts that he did. The proposal that Mr. Courtney has set in place that we approved, again, like Alder Chairman Coe said by one vote, is that his place is going to be more of a speakeasy. And again, we want to bring good neighbors into the community, and we want to encourage businesses in the community. We want to encourage safe places for our community members to go to. I think it's important that we pass this. I also recognize, as Attorney Letney said, that this could be a disqualifier, the fact that the information was not disclosed properly. But as Mr. Marshall explained to us, it was an oversight because it wasn't alcohol related. I don't think he understood that he needed to report that. And we have a policy here of giving people breaks when necessary. I mean, we use our conditional use that way as well many times. And I would be discouraged to deny a license to someone who wants to bring a business into our community, who has, again, stressed that his bar is going to be more of a speakeasy than a bar. He wanted a license so that he could have live entertainment, poetry readings, that kind of stuff. So I don't see that, even though our discussion was fierce during our committee, that this needs to be put down. I think it's a great move in our community. And again, we have resources in place. Once this happens, if we do experience a problem with it, to come back and take care of business by denying a license or getting rid of it later. I know it's a little bit more of a difficult process, but again, we need to give people chances in our community to redeem themselves and to bring business to our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder Perez. Alder Coe.
Yes, I just, in our application, there's a question, and we changed this in 2018 because people were having confusion with it. Have you ever been convicted of any offenses other than traffic? And it don't get any simpler than that. And he failed to disclose this information. And that's my reason for asking for denial on this item. Thank you. I might have comments later.
Okay. If you could virtually lower your hand how you do again, that would be helpful. Thank you, Alder Coe. Alder Pete.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I understand and I agree with a lot of what Alder Perez stated, but I have to go back to what Lieutenant Webb statement that the police department has. What procedures are put into place to prevent any negative consequences in the future? Could anyone address that? Have processes been put in place? I'm not sure about the legalities of the misinformation on the application, but I'm concerned about primarily what's going to be done by the applicant to assure the community that those things don't happen in the future. Thank you.
And Alder Pete, was that a question that you were directing to someone specifically, or
yes, if the committee, licensing committee could answer that, or Officer Webb could answer that. Has anything, what would convince us that those situations won't occur in the future? I understand, as Alder Perez stated, it's going to be a low-key bar, but again, I'd like to know if someone can address that. What's going to be different this time?
Okay, I will defer your question to the chair of the committee. That'd be the person we point to on these deliberations. Alder Coe, do you have a response to that, to Alder Pete's question?
Well, all he said is he's gonna promises that he's gonna run a good, clean bar, basically, and but I still go back to the same thing there. He said it was an oversight, or he forgot about a 2019 conviction, but yet we go back in 2001, he remembered that conviction. So my concern is that something was being hidden here, and I just don't trust this applicant. Thank you.
Okay. Alder Peterson, you have the floor.
Yes, I'll go against the motion again. Similar reasons last time seemed correct me if I'm wrong, but he was not given a ticket for not having the proper license. He did not have it posted. Maybe Alder Coe or Alder Capillion could correct that, but I believe he had the license. He just didn't have it posted. So he got a misdemeanor ticket, which he paid, didn't get convicted. Saying that somebody got convicted is kind of a harsh word for a misdemeanor crime for not posting a sign in your business. Whether or not it was an intentional or an unintentional act to leave it off his application, I don't know. I would take his word for it that it's unintentional, because he had a number of things on there that I considered much more significant that he listed. So I will speak against the motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Alder Santiago.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. I would like to also speak against the motion to deny. Seeing as how we didn't get all of the details of the incident that's been brought up, but it sounds pretty benign. No alcohol involved. Thank you, Alder Peterson, for clarifying that it was for not having it posted and not having the license at all. But I would like to say, Douglas Avenue, where this is supposedly going to go, it's been devoid of business for a long time. And we have somebody here looking to put their hard-earned dollars into, our economy here, and try to bring Douglas back to life, especially a minority business owner. I think that we need to get behind that. And, for something like this, I could see if it was a violent act or involving alcohol or something like that, I could see, making a case against it. But it sounds pretty benign to me. Everything else, if you listed other infractions, maybe he did just forget, or for whatever reason, it sounds benign to me, and I am going to vote against the denial. Thank you.
Thank you. President Tate.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It seems to me that the most appropriate action wouldn't be for us to necessarily be debating approval or denial tonight. If there has been additional information brought for consideration, then probably the best thing to do, especially if there's concerns about it, like Alder Pete has raised or others have said, is to bring in the applicant and say, this is what we've learned. In the meantime, what's your plan to address this new information? What's your plan to address what we've identified? As opposed to, excuse me?
Can I make a point of order? I don't believe there's anything new that was not presented to the committee. Maybe the committee members could, confirm that, but I don't think anything new has been presented by Lieutenant Webb that wasn't presented at the meeting.
Okay, I mean, that's more of a statement around the issue, but I hear what you're saying. It does seem that what Alder Coe presented made it seem as though there is new information between the committee and what we're hearing today. And so if that's not the case, I guess that would be important to know. Regardless, Alder Tate still has the floor, and a motion to refer back to committee would be in order at this time, if you so desire.
The only circumstances in which I would make the motion to refer is if additional information was produced between the last committee meeting and now. If it hasn't been, then it wouldn't be appropriate to refer back and address those directly with the applicant. So I'm kind of at a loss here because we had an initial opening statement that said we got new information, and now we're getting information from other committee members and head shakes that affirm that, that says this is not new information. Part of you wants to say, like, maybe this still needs to go back because y'all need to figure out what you know and what you don't know, and not have this go before the council members. And it seems like this is obviously it was a contentious discussion. It was a 3-2 vote. But if committee members are operating off different sets of facts, that's problematic to be presenting to the council any particular recommendation. So I'll leave it at that for now, but I'll let others kind of chime in.
Thank you, President Tate. Alder Horton, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't think there's no other new information that's been presented here tonight. And I think there's also a process, and one of the processes that we have a good neighbors report. So if we're going to get any information where the police department and the city come together to speak with the applicant about some of the things that he's going to put in place, I think that would be the best place for us to actually get our information. I would not be in support of this, just like the first one, and just trying, this is a new business. He said he's going to be doing poetry. This is something that happened in Kenosha. And even before he gets an opportunity to prove himself in Racine, we go back to Kenosha. And I think what Sergeant Webb was saying, Lieutenant Webb, was saying was, all he asked is that that the applicant is going to be a good neighbor, run a good bar, so that we don't have, any issues, and also participate, with the police department to make sure that this is a good establishment.
Thank you, Alder Horton. Alder Taft.
Thank you. A couple issues came up since I raised my hand, so I just wanted to. So I have a couple comments or a couple questions. One, my question is, what happens, can the person, if this motion is rejected or denied or whatever, can the applicant try again, including all the information, including the conviction, and go through the process again? I agree that excluding information that is relevant, potentially relevant, gives me a bit of pause, but I also, so that's the first part. I guess the question is for Attorney Letney, and then I have a follow-up. But what happens then? Can the applicant apply again and include the information on the application?
Attorney Letney?
If a liquor license is denied, an applicant cannot apply again for 1 year.
Okay, so it'd be 1 year, but then they could apply in a year okay. And the second question I had is, I just wanted some clarification. So we heard there was a conviction, and then we heard it wasn't really a conviction, and it was they didn't have a license, and then it was posted. And so but it wasn't could we get clarification maybe from Lieutenant Webb about what exactly, transpired there?
Lieutenant Webb, can you offer us some clarity there on what precisely the gentleman's record contains?
I don't have that information. I was with the liaison. I was asked to come initially because Alder Coe wanted the police chief to speak on what impact this might have on the community if this gentleman was allowed to have a license, given the nature of the incident that happened in Kenosha. So in reference to that, it was my understanding that the gentleman had a license to have this bar but he hadn't received a license. And he allowed a third party to rent it out to have this party for the teenagers. And that's where all this stuff came from. So the citation he was subsequently issued didn't involve a liquor violation. In fact, it would have been a municipal citation, just like if we issued a citation. It's municipal, it's not a criminal matter, it's a municipal matter. So he received a municipal citation from Kenosha.
Okay. Alder Taft,
Okay.
does that answer your question, or at least partially answer your?
It does answer my question. One more follow-up for Lieutenant Webb, if I may,
Please
at your
proceed.
discretion, sir. So the event has been characterized a couple different ways. So it sounds like there were a lot of units from a couple different communities that were called to this party, and so but some people are like, well, it's been characterized a couple different ways. How would you characterize? They said it wasn't alcohol involved, but then all these people were called in. So what would be your characterization of this event that would receive a municipal citation?
Absolutely. Please understand the information I'm giving you a second, even third hand, as I wasn't there. But just in the information I gathered from listening to the gentleman speak on his own behalf about the incident, and from what I know from the officers that went down there, the club itself only holds, I think you said his max was 150 people. We have reports that there was anywhere from 300 to 400 people at the club, which, as the gentleman said, they wouldn't have been inside because the capacity is 150. But as a gentleman that has worked third shift for a significant amount of time and been on the Public Safety License Committee as a liaison for 3 years prior to today, a lot of the problems that happen with clubs is people congregating outside the club itself. Some of them individuals may have never went inside that club that night, but they congregated outside, which led to the problem or part of the problem itself. So the gentleman, in listening to him talk, he said it was a kids' party. There was no alcohol involved. And from the way he made it sound, some of the people that was there causing the problem, it would have been impossible for 300 to 400 to 500, depending on who you ask, people to be inside that club. So for whatever it was a big enough event where Kenosha themselves couldn't handle it. And like I said before, when I asked the gentleman, we're looking for things to mitigate that from happening in the city of Racine.
Okay, no, I
Does that-
appreciate. Yes, I appreciate that
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
clarification. Yes, thank you so much. I mean, I think for me, what I'm sitting with right now, and I'm looking forward to hearing from other folks, is, should this gentleman have a 1-year setback penalty for not including this? And and if it wasn't a conviction, it was a municipal citation, I understand why maybe that was left off while other convictions may have been on. So that's kind of what I'm tossing around right now. So thank you very much for the clarifications.
Thank you. Chief Robinson has asked to be recognized and may offer some additional information here. Chief?
Just in listening to what Lieutenant Webb said, which he had conveyed to me previously and I've forgotten about, it seems to me that the problem centers around where we have most of our problems right now, and that's teenagers. So if he doesn't rent his place out for teen events, that mitigates the issue. And if he commits not to do that, that seems like a reasonable resolution, unless I'm missing something.
Thank you, Chief Robinson. Alder Taft, were you finished with your comments?
Yeah, sorry. I guess I would say, has the gentleman committed to that? That was my question based on Chief Robinson's comments. But yeah, I'm done now. Sorry.
Thank you. Attorney Letney also has his hand raised and may offer some information here that's pertinent.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just reading from the amended Good Neighbors report that was written by Assistant City Attorney Arn, that the citation that the applicant received was for failing to obtain a public entertainment license. And it was a municipal ordinance violation in the city of Kenosha. That's what the conviction was.
Okay. Thank you, Attorney Letney. Alder Rouse.
Thank you, Your Honor. So I had some time to look up the Racine Municipal Code for this, just to help clarify things. Section 622, applications for alcohol beverage license, and we go down to section C. In false statement, all matters submitted in writing to the city by any applicant or license pertaining to an alcohol beverage license shall be true, accurate, and complete in all respects. If an applicant provides a materially false statement or omission on a new license application, that applicant shall be deemed disqualified and that application shall be denied unless the committee finds good cause to grant exception. So in that sense, I need to see good cause, which I'm failing to see after watching that meeting. I watched the applicant get defensive, repeatedly bring up legal counsel, and at any point, this applicant can rescind their application, correct their mistakes, and reapply. They don't have to wait to get denied and then have to wait a year. They could do the right thing and turn it back in the right way. And then we don't have to go through this. But when pressed to that, I was very alarmed by the response. Again, liquor license is a privilege. There's a lot of people out there that we don't need to fight on. And especially during COVID, when there's issues of mass gatherings and mass uncontrolled gatherings, it's not a good time to be making a risk like that. I would rather see this applicant do the right thing, take down their application, and bring it back up the correct way, or face denial and wait a year.
Okay, Alder Perez.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'd like to address a couple of issues. Mr. Courtney said that he would hire security to handle any problems on the property, not local security, because he felt that local security probably knew the local people. So he would hire an outside agency to do security. As far as Alder Pete's recommendation of what can we do to prevent something from happening, that's what laws are for. And we cannot prevent anything from happening. We have to mitigate what happens. You can have as many laws as you want, and that's why we have laws in the hope of prevention. It acts as a standard, but when it comes down to it, we don't know what happens, but laws do the after thing, not the before thing. There was no additional information that was brought up. As a matter of fact, Lieutenant Webb's statement actually minimized some of the discussion that we had, and Attorney Letney's explanation of his amended request, his amended information actually helps us understand that it was a municipal ticket that was issued. And that's an interesting question. Maybe I can address, or maybe Attorney Letney can address it. I was under the impression by reading the information that once it's gone this far in the process, you cannot rescind your application and apply again unless you wait a year. Is that correct?
That's correct. Once I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, may I speak?
Yeah, please.
I'm sorry. That's correct. Once it's gone past Finance Personnel Committee, it can't be withdrawn.
And you mean Public Safety and Licensing Committee, correct?
I'm sorry. Yes, you're right. Public safety.
Is that also true if the council were to refer it back to committee? Does that also put them out of it for a year, or does that allow them to reconsider it without the year cooling off period?
No, the council could send it back to committee to readdress the issue.
Okay, without establishing a 1-year moratorium.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Your Honor.
Alder Perez, you still have the floor.
Yeah, thank you, Your Honor. And Mr. Marshall's not getting a regular license. He's paying for the extra one that we offer. So he's making quite an investment, not only in the property, but in extra costly license to get this. And again, I go back to a minority business within our communities. You set up prevention standards, saying he's going to do security. And he's also saying that he will work with whoever he needs to work with to get this to happen. So I'm really disappointed that after a decision has been made in committee that it's being changed by the chairman of the committee. And so I'd like to just say that I'm against this motion of changing. I think we need to go forward with this. Again, we cannot continue to deny people who have not caused a problem for us licenses and businesses within our community. It's already hard enough to get a business within our community. Our standards seem to be excessively high, although that's all a good thing, but he really hasn't done anything to prevent that from being an issue for us. Thank you, Ron.
Thank you. Alder Caprillion.
Thank you so much. Thanks for recognizing me. So at Public Safety and Licensing, we have a role that is very difficult. It's a very difficult role, and we have to take the information that comes to us and use that and make a decision. And one of the things that Lieutenant Webb talked about is a concern that we think about, are they going to be a good neighbor? We take the information, we take what they said, and we answer that question. We try to do our very best. And Alder, Pete, you were right on it when you had asked, what do we have to assure that this is not going to happen again? And I'm going to tell you, when Lieutenant Webb was questioning this applicant at our committee, I know Alder Rouse talked about his defensiveness, and Lieutenant was just talking about accountability. You are the one who held the responsibility. Do you understand that that was your responsibility? He's like, I didn't know about the party. He just kept disconnecting from what took place. I know we're talking about there was no liquor there. There was liquor there. It just wasn't being sold, but it was noted that tons of open intoxicants were there and being smuggled in. There was a $20 cover charge for the DJ, and there was open intoxicants. So anyone who did the research on it found this information out. There was gunshots fired, there was pepper spray, there was officers throwing up because of it. And it was a big chaotic mess. And he was disassociating himself from this by saying, I'm not the one who was responsible for that. But ultimately, as Lieutenant Webb kept trying to drive it, but yet you are the one who held the responsibility over that premise, but it wasn't me who did it. And so this is a huge cause of concern. So when incidents come up, so I have some longevity here where I've seen incidents come up and where the person who holds the responsibility disconnects themselves and points blame elsewhere. And then we struggle. And then are they being a good neighbor? We can't truly address a problem. We have a symbiotic relationship, and we have to, all of us play our parts in here. And so we're trying to make the very best decision for the city of Racine and for the residents. And you have somebody who is showing that there is some cause of concern, there's some red flags. So we have the necessary precautions in place there. Please list them so we can discuss them. So the new information that we're talking about came up by our own doing for the background that had happened. I think the attorney's office provided what was read at the beginning by the chairman by Alder Coe at the beginning of this discussion. That's the new information. When we did our homework on this application, that wasn't there. That piece wasn't there. So it really is the cause of concern. And I think back in 2018, this Common Council body voted on the policies and updated these because of some state laws on grounds for denial for this falsification or omission from the applications. Please, let's be consistent. You are going to make it even that much harder for this committee. Be consistent so when applicants come in that off the board, so we're not just basing it off some somebody's feeling at the time. He omitted some information, denied. Have him come back, do it right so we can have everybody come in at the fair spot. We need to be consistent. You're going to make it very hard for it. It already is hard, but that much harder by not being consistent. Thank you.
Thank you. Alder Lemke.
Yeah, so I would like to say, I've been on public safety and licensing for a while, and I know that those standards were much debated when we put them in place. And the reason we put them in place is so that when, like Alder Caprillion said, when people come in, it's not, I feel like you're trustworthy. I feel like you're not, because I think a lot of that happened. And it shouldn't be, Bill feels a certain way on one day, and so we pass the liquor license. And the licensing criteria And much credit to the city attorney's office. And I will say, New Arn is brilliant and spent tons of time researching what other communities had done. You know, we debated, should they be, you know, automatic point system? Should it be, you know, whatever, all these different kinds of regulations. And, you know, I just don't understand why why are there liquor laws if we're not going to enforce them? I honestly, for me, there's so many times when people come in front of us and I have, you know, may or may not have a problem with the situation that's described in Kenosha. But it is painfully clear that it says if something happened and it's not a traffic ticket, put it on there. And I would say 4 of 6 applications every single Tuesday when we met, they'd say, I don't know that there was this. I didn't know that there was that. I didn't know that there was this. And it, you know, it's like, oh, I didn't know I had to include things 5 years ago. Does it say don't include things 5 years ago? I didn't know I had to include tickets when I was 20 because I wasn't over 21. Does it say don't include things that are over 21? I mean, we have a standard. Why are you know, whatever, Kenosha, okay, just if you make a mistake, all the bar owners there, if you make a mistake, just come and explain it. Don't falsely say whatever, whether it's intentional or not. If it's not a traffic ticket, list it and then come and explain it. And then we don't have these gigantic dramas. And then people are saying, are we being equitable? Are we not being equitable? There's a standard, just follow the standard. I think we should refer it back to committee. They can hash it out there, but I think the applications have to be complete. I don't care if they come and explain it and everybody's satisfied, fine, but make a complete application.
Alder Mi'kmaq.
Thank you, Your Honor. I appreciate the recognition opportunity. I've been listening and trying to absorb all this information and come to the best conclusion I can. And I think I just want to sort a few things out verbally first, probably more for the benefit of myself, but if it helps anybody else, all better. But I think, you know, it sounds to me like there's a couple of different scenarios that are being brought up here. And some people are coming at this from an angle of, we want to give people a second chance. We want to be business friendly. We want to encourage to come to our community and set up shop. And then there's the other hat that's coming at it from a very rural centric, what the policies say, what the ordinances, how we outline this and moving forward. And I think, you know, from a personal side of things, I also look at the bigger picture of the impact on the community as a whole. And we can look at this as, yeah, we want to feel good about giving somebody another chance. We want to give this, you know, they had a tough time in Kenosha, but they're going to come here and try and do something new here. Okay, that sounds great. But we also know that somebody created a situation by opening up an opportunity for something to happen on their premise, whether they were responsible for what happened or not, it was on their premise. And then it turns out it was a large youth-oriented party where there was risky behavior and underage drinking, from what it sounds like. I clearly wasn't there. I don't know the facts, but from what I'm gathering from all this, that is the case. When we're looking at improving and creating better opportunity for our community, we have to look at risk mitigation. And especially when it comes to our youth, we can say we want to give people a second chance because, you know, they didn't get it right the first time, but we got to give our young people a first chance. And if there's any risk that somebody's going to come in and create another opportunity to create risky environments for our young people to find themselves in, I have a hard time getting behind that. But again, that kind of that goes back to how I feel about it. And a lot of people are talking about how they feel about it. I appreciate Alder Rouse and his investigation into the proper way to proceed. I think it's obviously very clear that there was a violation of how this is supposed to operate, and important information was included. I really don't think that there's much more we can do other than deny this, because there was a direct violation of the way that this application was supposed to be submitted. And I think it sounds like this has been going on for a while, and the applicant had an opportunity to do it the right way. And if this is what we're left to decide on today, I have to move forward following policy specifically Obviously, I've expressed feelings about this, but policy is what's going to guide my decision on this. And just thank you for letting me say all that out loud so it made sense a little bit more in my head.
Alder Meekman, thank you very much for your comments. Alder McCarthy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Based on the comments from members of the Public Safety and Licensing Committee, I'm open to voting for a license for this person in the long run. Based on the information I've heard tonight, however, I can't do so. I think if we want to keep the door open for this person, the most prudent thing to do is to return this to committee as described by City Attorney Letney, and allow those of us who have an issue with the process right now in the violation of the process to have time to consider this, actually, the merits of the applicant. So I would advise perhaps that we would send this back to committee so that we have something in front of us that we are not forced into a vote based on the letter of the law kind of thing. So my observation at this point, as it stands now, I am in support of the denial. However, I am open with better information.
Thank you, Alder McCarthy. Alder Tate II.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So after all that conversation, I think I can return back to my original point, which was this discussion suggests that it should be returning back to committee, not only because the suggestion that there is new information to be considered by Alder Caprellian, despite, any interpretations amongst committee members, but additionally, we've had alders present particular concerns as to, well, what are they going to do about X, or what are they going to do about Y? Well, why don't we just, require them to do this thing? That's what happens in committee. To say, like, these are the restrictions that are going to be go before you. Do you want to proceed with your application or not? You will be prohibited from, having events for anyone under 18, X, Y, and Z. And that's the opportunity for committee to make those particular recommendations. Certainly, we shouldn't be doing it on the council, especially absent from the applicant being here to say that whether they can receive that or not. So at this time, I will make a motion to refer back to committee because I believe that's where this conversation has led us to, based on all the discussion from alders, as well as the information that is before us and the options, so that whatever we choose to go for, whether it's denial or approval, having gone through committee and hashed out those remaining concerns, and if they are unsatisfactorily addressed in committee, then the recommendation can be to deny. And hopefully after that conversation, there'll be some more unified recommendation from the committee members. But absent that and having different perspectives as well as different levels of information regarding this applicant, I don't think it would be appropriate for the council to take action on any recommendation that's been presented at this time, nor would it be necessarily appropriate for us to be taking action without having been able to have the back and forth with the applicant. So I'll make the motion to refer back to committee.
Second the motion.
The motion by President Tate II to refer this item back to Public Safety and Licensing. It has been seconded by Alder McCarthy. So the motion on the floor is to refer this item back to committee. President Tate, does that conclude your remarks?
Yes, it does.
Okay, thank you. Alder Taft.
I guess I'm going to speak in favor of the deferral with the understanding that the committee is going to make it clear to the applicant that they have the opportunity with this referral to, resubmit a full application and discuss at a future date less than a year how they're going to mitigate it. And with the understanding that the committee can, is this accurate that the committee can say you may not rent out this business to events for underage folks? Is that, I'm sorry, I haven't been on Public Safety and Licensing, so is that something they can do?
I will refer your question to Attorney Letney as to whether or not those are conditions that can be placed on a license.
There are conditions that can be placed on a license. And as has been stated, this is really Attorney New's field of expertise, and I think they should be addressed at committee.
Okay, I appreciate that. So yeah, I would support the motion that I go back to committee under those circumstances. Thank you.
Thank you. Alder Coe, you have the floor. Alder Coe, you're muted.
I want to speak against the motion. I mean, we got these rules in place, and every time somebody comes to us, they forgot, or, oh, I don't remember that. This keeps happening at the committee. Ultimately, in Kenosha, this license was never granted this establishment because of this. And I mean, to me, my recommendation is to deny this license and let them come back in a year, because we can't keep letting people come by when we have rules in place and we're not using the tools that we have. Thanks.
Thank you, Alder Coe. Any further discussion on Alder Tate's motion to refer this item back to public safety and licensing? Alder Caprillion.
Just very briefly, I am against this motion. I believe we have to remain consistent. There was a laundry list of items that he did list that were almost, if anyone should have been left out, it was some of these irrelevant things, but he listed them, and this being the very most recent one by many years was the thing that was left off. And I believe we have to remain consistent. Please allow us to do that at public safety and licensing. By keep having these exceptions, it just makes this job that much harder. And we need to put that message out there so people understand when they apply that they know that they have to fill it out thoroughly. So I'm against the motion. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you, Alder Caprillion. Alder Jones.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have one question. When the party or whatever it was called held at the establishment in Kenosha, and I believe it was Mrs. Caprillion or someone who stated that there were alcohol being served, shots fired, were there any tickets, citations, or anything given for any of those violations?
I will refer your question, Alder Jones, to Lieutenant Webb or Chief Robinson to offer any additional information they have. And I guess if they don't have it today, and if this motion carries, that would be a good thing to explore, ask to be explored at the committee level. Lieutenant Webb.
Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay. Reference that I don't know that information. Our officers merely responded down there to assist with traffic control and clearing the crowd. That's something that can be discovered, I think, quite easily. But as of right now, I don't have that information. On our end, our officers didn't take any enforcement action.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alder Jones. Alder Tate II.
Thank you. These will probably be my last remarks regarding this. In terms of consistency, what the council decides is ultimately the barometer of what we do and how consistent we are. So if we choose to deny ultimately, and be, let's say, consistent, then that will happen at the council level. However, I think it is important as well for committee chairs to do their diligence before letting an item come before the council. If you have something new, don't make an alternate motion than what your committee did. Ask to refer it back to committee so you can address it within the committee. Otherwise, we have conversations like this that are entirely unnecessary when you could have addressed this at the committee level, particularly as you found that information out, and then you go back and you deal with it amongst your committee and come forward with a full recommendation. This is not appropriate for the council to be addressing these things on the floor. If you have information, take it back to committee and address it to the committee that made the original recommendation. Because if it's as significant as you think it is, more than likely the committee members will also change their perspective, or at least take it into consideration as they make their decision. So that's just my statement to be made as council president. In the process that we do things, too often have we had items come before the council that are suddenly having a reverse recommendation from the chair instead of what the committee did. And that's not how we're supposed to do things. And if there is a reason to reverse the recommendation, then take it back to the committee to make the case to reverse the recommendation instead of doing this back and forth thing with the council. But again, when it comes to consistency, if we actually go through the entire process, if we actually go back and forth even through the process, the end goal should be that after we've gone to and from council, referred and recommended and going back to council, ultimately, we're going to come to a conclusion that is consistent with our practices, our policies, and our procedures and our values. And if we let this process play out, we should ultimately be consistent. Referring back to the committee isn't deviating from what our policies should be. It's allowing those policies a chance to be fully fleshed out, fully gone through, and then make that final determination. Because if we do something differently without having done those things, then we're being inconsistent. So I think it's entirely appropriate for us to refer back to committee. And ultimately, I expect committee members, because they are all very astute and well-thought people, will take the information, balance things out, engage the applicant, and make an assessment as to whether they've satisfactorily mitigated those concerns or mitigated those reasons for omitting things or updated their application to reflect those things, and then make your final recommendation to the council, which will take, at its face value and then go from there. I think it's really important that we do go back and let this process play fully out, particularly when, members have found additional information. That's important to present to your committee members because you may be able to convince them to vote in a different way. And I think we ought to let that happen in a 5-member panel before it gets to 15. Thanks.
Thank you, President Tate. I see no further discussion on this item. So the motion before us is to refer item 0001-22 back to the Public Safety and Licensing Committee. When the clerk calls your name, please vote as you wish.
Alder Lemke,
Aye.
Alder Coe,
No.
Alder Jones,
Aye.
Alder Tate,
Aye.
Alder Santiago,
Aye.
Alder Caprillion,
No.
Alder Peterson,
Yes.
Alder Horton,
Aye.
Alder West,
Aye.
Alder McCarthy,
Aye.
Alder Pete,
Aye.
Alder Rouse,
Aye.
Alder Perez,
No.
Alder Taft,
Aye.
Alder Meekma.
Oh, sure.
That's 12 ayes and 3 noes.
Or 11 ayes and a no sure. That motion carries. We have referred this item back to committee. Back to the report then. Alder Coe, did you have any other items for separate consideration, or should the remaining item go on the consent agenda?
Consent agenda.
Okay, then without objection, we'll place the remaining items on the consent agenda. We will then now move on to the Community Development Block Grant Advisory Board by Alder Tate II, by President Tate. President Tate, is this an item for separate consideration?
It is not, but seeing as most alders don't have much engagement with this committee, I do think it's appropriate to take it up separately, just give some background information on it. So item 0059-22 is a communication sponsored by Mayor Mason requesting an allocation of $160,724 in emergency solutions grant funding. The fiscal note is that this allocates $160,724 in emergency solutions grant in accordance with the 2020-2024 consolidation plan. The recommendation is to approve, move to approve.
So motion to approve this item from President Tate II. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by, I'll give it to Alder Pete. So I heard just under the wire there. Any further discussion on this item? Seeing no discussion, when the clerk calls your name, please vote as you wish.
Alder Lemke,
Aye.
Alder Coe,
Aye.
Alder Jones,
Aye.
Alder Tate,
Aye.
Alder Santiago,
Aye.
Alder Caprillion,
Aye.
Alder Peterson,
Aye.
Alder Horton,
Aye.
Alder West,
Aye.
Alder McCarthy,
Aye.
Alder Pete,
Aye.
Alder Rouse,
Aye.
Alder Perez,
Aye.
Alder Taft,
Aye.
Alder Meekma.
Aye.
15 ayes, 0 noes.
That motion carries unanimously. We then move on to the Office of the Mayor report. President Tate, did you want to bring this item up for separate consideration?
Yes.
Please read.
Yes, very enthusiastic. Item 0068-22, communications by Mayor Mason submitting the following appointments: Damian Evans to the Library Board for a term expiring in May 2024. And congratulations to Mr. Evans as our new equity officer. Keith Coleman to the Planning, Heritage, and Design Commission for a term expiring in April 2024. Congratulations to Mr. Coleman on his recent retirement. And Lorenzo Santos to Transit Commission in a term expiring in April 2024. Move to approve, or move to, approve.
Yeah, there's a motion to approve the appointments of the mayor here. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alder West. Any discussion on this item? Seeing no discussion, when the clerk calls your name, please vote.
Alder Rouse, stand up.
Oh, I'm sorry, Alder Rouse. Alder Rouse.
Thank you, Your Honor. Just a quick question. Are we going to get a chance to talk with Damian Evans? I don't know if he's here tonight or a meeting in the future just to engage with. I'm not sure if we had that chance yet at the council level.
So that's a great question to bring up. It's a discussion with the equity officer position is not something that's noticed on this agenda, but we'd be happy to have a conversation after this about when he might appear in front of the council at a future meeting.
Awesome. I'd like that. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great question. Any further discussion on the motion itself? Seeing none, when the clerk calls your name, please vote as you wish.
Alder Lemke.
Aye.
Alder Coe.
Aye.
Alder Jones.
Aye.
Alder Tate.
Aye.
Alder Santiago.
Aye.
Alder Caprillion.
Aye.
Alder Peterson.
Aye.
Alder Horton.
Aye.
Alder West.
Aye.
Alder McCarthy.
Aye.
Alder Pete.
Aye.
Alder Rouse.
Aye.
Alder Perez.
Aye.
Alder Taft.
Aye.
Alder Meekma.
Aye.
That's 15 ayes, 0 noes.
Thank you very much. That motion passes unanimously. We will now then move on to the consent agenda. At this time, Alder Tate, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Alder West. If alders could briefly unmute themselves, all those in favor of the consent agenda, please say aye.
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 Opposed? That motion carries. We now move on to Common Council announcements. Announcements are limited to recognition of city residents and employees, memorials, and non-political community events. Discussion of matters related to government business is prohibited. Are there any announcements today? Alder Coe, we'll start with you.
Yes, I would like to welcome say happy belated birthday to my beautiful daughter, Heather. I probably shouldn't say this, but she turned 31 last Thursday. Just want to wish her a happy birthday.
I knew he was gonna do it.
Oh, well. Thank you.
President Tate.
I do want to wish a happy belated birthday to our illustrious mayor. Yeah, just had a birthday last week. Is that correct? Yeah, something like 59 or 70, some 72. Really, really old. Just super old right now. But no, happy birthday, sir.
Thank you very much for that. Still in my 40s, hanging on by a thread, but still in my 40s. So thank you for that. Any other announcements? I just a couple things I wanted to acknowledge. We had a great event at the Transit Center here today. Just as a reminder, our bus drivers are, as of today, city employees, and we are recognizing their union officially as of today as their bargaining unit. So welcome transit employees to the work that you are doing to continue providing great transit service to our residents. The residents will notice no difference today, but a lot of great work went in with staff and this council to make sure that the service went uninterrupted and the employment and the benefits went uninterrupted. So thank you, everyone. And welcome to the bus drivers who are now officially city employees. The other thing that I just wanted to mention and have been thinking about and want to honor or adjourn in honor of the educators that are out there as we start Black History Month at a time when teaching history seems to be a controversial thing, which seems strange and bizarre. And just as the mayor, I hope educators who are in sound of my voice will be encouraged to teach our students the full legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks and anything else that we might want to think about during Black History Month, but also through the remainder of the year as well, so that people know our history and how it informs our present, so we don't repeat the mistakes of the past as a farce. So best of luck and in full support of educators teaching our young people their history. Any other comments or announcements before we adjourn? Alder Taft. Alder Taft, you're muted.
To follow up on what you said, you know, I'm excited to be recognized. We're recognizing Black History Month, especially health disparities. That's really important. I also wanted to, recently it was Holocaust Remembrance Day, and in the spirit of teaching history and important issues, that's a thing that I just want to acknowledge and recognize the history of the Holocaust, and it shouldn't be forgotten. So thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Alder Taft. Any other announcements? Seeing none, at this time, Alder West, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
All righty, thank you. Move to adjourn.
Second. Thank you. Seconded by Alder Tate. All those in favor of adjournment, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned, everyone. Thank you so much. Godspeed and be well.